We saw a post on Facebook the other day that a little bit mind-boggling. We just, you don't have to be take a certification test to be a coach on Facebook, but they were confusing power and also a counter and trap, and so uh, that's up to them. But we want to make sure here on First Down Playbook, I'm going to slow down today and explain to you some of the definitions of a power play, and then tomorrow I'll come back and explain the definitions of a counter play, because there are some things that hold true uh, for a play to be a power and for a play to be a counter and even a trap. So let's look at that. We don't propose to have all the answers here, but let's take a look. You can see a First Down Playbook. We've got 6 different pages, 200 apiece, 60 apiece. And so we've got over 360 ways to run the power. You've got empty when you do it with the quarterback, 1 back, 2 back. So there are a lot of ways to run the power. But let's take a look at some of the fundamental things that need to take place for it to be a power play. First of all, the power play is always going to be better if you run it to a tight end side. Now, I know a lot of you are going to go like, Coach, we've been running spread power for 15 years, and you would be right about that. And in fact, sometimes when you run the power and you get an over front with a 3 technique, you're putting this tight end in a tough situation where they got to block that defensive end by themselves. But what you're looking for when you run the power traditionally is a double team. So you're going to get the double team on the 3 technique here, and you're hoping that tight end can hold his own with that end right there, and that F, that fullback, is going to clean out that C gap on the way to that Sam backer. Now, traditionally, the front that you like to run the power to is, even if they close the middle of the field, is an under front. Excuse me. Now, with an under front, what you're going to end up having is you're going to end up having the shade, the 5, and the 9 over here, all right, to the power side. And that gives you the ability to either double team the shade and then ricochet back to the pull and protect the puller. But the big thing is you're giving the tackle on the tight end a double team on the end right here. And now your fullback can kick out this Sam. And the Sam will probably try to wrong arm it and all of that. But now your pulling guard is going to come up inside. Now, for the definition of a power, because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, you've got the back on the same side. If the back is coming from over here, doing anything other than faking a sweep or giving some kind of window dressing, if the back is involved in the blocking, it's going to be a power. If they're on this side, it's going to be a counter if they're on the weak side. And we'll come back and do the counter later. There's going to always be a pulling guard on a power. The pulling guard does not have to turn up inside for it to be a power. There are different schemes that you can take the pulling guard and kick out the end man on the line of scrimmage. So keep that in mind, and that confuses a lot of young coaches. They think that power means that the guard has to go up inside, Most of the time that's right, but not all the time. Now, let's take a look at just some of the variations. Here's one of our youth plays, and you see where we've got this blocked untraditionally for youth football. And the reason we do it is we're not sure that a youth football fullback is going to be able to handle that kick-out block. Now, I'm talking about, a 10-year-old. But if you wanted to block it traditionally, that's the way you would versus a 6'2". And you just would pull that guard around for the front side backer. And once again, when you're a 6'2" defense, you're going to end up having a player short somewhere. But just once again, got the back on the same side, you got the puller. We traditionally just like to take it right here and let the fullback go up inside and let this tight end base that backer right there, just because of the size and just the ability to do it at an age of 9, 10, 11. Now, here's where the power starts getting a little complicated, is when you run the power to an open inside. Once again, you have a couple things that you can do. Now, this is a 1-back power. You see the guard is coming over here. What has happened here is widen the split, and they're letting that tackle base that 5 technique out here and running the power up inside. It's still a power play, all right? It's still a power play. You're trying to get a double team on this shade right here, all right? And then in this particular instance, you got an RPO helping you out, and you don't have to really worry as much because the quarterback's going to read what this mic does. But once again, we're looking at the basic parts of a power to the open inside right here. Now, let's say that, let's go over here and go to an underfront, and let's see what that looks like. Because if you've got an underfront, you're going to have a shade, 5, and 9 over here to the strong side, which means you're going to have a 3 technique or a B gap player, all right, to the power side. Well, you're not going to run the power, all right, and leave that 3 technique alone with that guard. So now you've got to get the double team, which is what you kind of want right here with a power. So what you're going to do now is that guard is not going to turn up inside. That guard is going to kick out. That is still a power, coaches. It's still a power. It's just a different scheme over here. That could be called a trap block. That could be called a kick out block. It could be called whatever you want, but it's still power. So the last picture, just to show you right here, when you get in a goal line unbalanced type situation here, and you don't see this very much, but once again, you've got the fullback, and you're going to load that in now. You're actually counting on that in, stepping down on the double team here in the unbalanced to the open inside, and now that guard is going to pass them up and let that fullback load. Once again, back on the same side, guard pulling to the play side, back hitting it in either the, could be tight, B, or C gap. I actually bounce here because you're loading, but you've got everything coming here to the play side. That is the definition of a power. Tomorrow we'll come back and talk to you about the definition of a counter.